She stood up in the middle of the restaurant and shouted, "You're under arrest for impersonating a federal officer." My sister thought she was humiliating me. What she didn't know was that the badge on my belt wasn't fake. And the man she just called? He wasn't just her captain. He was one of the few people on this planet who knew exactly who I was. And the moment he walked in, the look on her face when he snapped to attention and said, "General Vance, ma'am. I apologize for the disturbance." It changed everything. Lisa always had a flair for drama. At every family dinner, she managed to twist the spotlight right back onto herself, like she was the star of some reality show we were all forced to watch. That night at Branson's Steakhouse was no different. She showed up in uniform even though she was off duty, strutting across the restaurant like she owned the place. My parents beamed at her the moment she walked in. My dad stood to hug her. My mom clapped like she was greeting a war hero. I just sat there, swirling my iced tea and pretending I didn't notice the pitying glances Lisa kept tossing me. "So," Lisa said, flashing her badge like a VIP pass to the universe, "how's the exciting world of alphabetizing?" She smirked. My stomach tightened. My voice caught in my throat, but I forced a smile. "It's a bit more complicated than that." "Oh, I'm sure it is," she said with a mocking laugh. "Government office work is so thrilling. What's next? Top secret stapler missions?" They laughed. My parents laughed. It wasn't even clever, just cruel. And I sat there like I always did, taking it. I'd spent years learning to swallow moments like these, filing them away. But that night, something shifted. Maybe it was the way my father didn't even look at me as he cut into his steak. Maybe it was my mom whispering, "Let's not start anything," under her breath. Or maybe I was just done. Lisa's eyes dropped to the credential on my belt, barely visible under my blazer. Her whole expression changed. "What's this?" she asked, her voice turning sharp. "A fake badge. Are you seriously pretending to be some federal agent now?" I said nothing. I didn't need to. Lisa stood up, right there in the middle of the restaurant. "You know impersonating a federal officer is a felony, right?" she barked, loud enough for the surrounding tables to stop eating. My mother gasped. My father froze. Lisa wasn't finished. "I'm calling my captain down here, right now. Let's see how long this act holds up when someone with actual authority shows up." She whipped out her phone. And that was when something inside me went quiet. A different version of me stepped forward. Not the invisible daughter, not the boring sister, but the woman who held clearance levels Lisa couldn't even pronounce. I calmly said, "Go ahead." Because I knew exactly who was going to walk through that door. And what was going to happen when he saw the badge she just mocked. I watched her hit call with the kind of smug satisfaction that only comes from thinking you've finally cornered your prey. She was so sure she was about to expose me. So sure she'd caught me in a lie. She had no idea what she'd just triggered. My mother leaned across the table whispering, "Claire, please, just apologize. You know how Lisa gets when she's embarrassed." Embarrassed? She was trying to have me arrested. In public, my father finally spoke, low and tense. "You shouldn't have brought fake credentials, Claire. That's serious." I felt something in me splinter, quietly. They still believed her. Always her. Even now, when she was threatening their other daughter with a felony charge over dinner. I glanced at my badge. The dark blue polymer card sat quietly on my belt. It wasn't flashy. No gold trim. No shield, just a silver eagle, a 7-pointed holographic star, and a band of color that meant nothing to 99% of people. But to those who did know, it meant one thing. Authority. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that never needs to. Lisa was pacing now, narrating everything like she was filming a television episode. "Yup, Captain Davis is on his way. He's gonna lose it when he sees this little charade. I bet you printed that badge at Kinko's." I said nothing. I didn't flinch. Because the woman she was mocking, Claire the desk jockey, wasn't the one sitting at the table anymore. The one sitting here was General Claire Vance. And Lisa had no idea the storm she'd just summoned. The restaurant had gone quiet. People were watching, whispering. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. But I wasn't nervous. I was calculating. Because this wasn't a scene anymore. It was a tactical situation. A chain of command issue. And Lisa, in her ignorance, had just bypassed every protocol by dragging her personal vendetta into federal territory. Unlawful detainment. Public misuse of authority. Obstruction of a federal officer. 3 violations in 60 seconds. I could feel my brain shifting, filing everything away like I was in a mission briefing. Every word she spoke, every step she took, was one more count against her. She thought she was showing off. She was, in fact, digging her own career's grave. And I was going to let her. Because the truth doesn't need to be yelled. It just needs a moment to walk into the room. And that moment was getting closer by the second. It felt like the entire restaurant was holding its breath. Lisa stood there, arms crossed, radiating superiority like she was the sheriff in an old western. She kept checking the door like she was waiting for her cavalry. My mother looked like she was about to cry. "Claire, just tell her it's fake," she whispered. "It's not worth ruining dinner." Ruining dinner? She thought I was the one ruining dinner. Not the daughter falsely accusing her sister of a felony. Not the one turning family beef into a public humiliation circus. Me. I glanced at my father. He still hadn't looked at me. His jaw was clenched, his eyes fixed on his plate like it had answers. They were so invested in the version of me they had created. They couldn't see the truth even when it was inches from their faces. I slowly reached down, unclipped my badge, and placed it on the table. No drama. No grand reveal. Just facts. A quiet, flat rectangle on white linen. To Lisa, it still meant nothing. To them, it was a toy. To Captain Davis, it would be a slap across the face. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Lisa checked her phone again. Clearly annoyed it was taking so long. She rolled her eyes. "He must be stuck with some actual crime," she said with a smirk. And then he walked in. Captain Davis. Tall, broad, late 50s, maybe. He had that weary posture only cops and high school principals develop, like he'd seen too much stupidity for one lifetime. His eyes scanned the restaurant. When he spotted Lisa waving him over, he sighed. Literally sighed. I almost smiled. He approached the table slowly, clearly expecting some pointless family drama. Lisa jumped to greet him. "Captain, thanks for coming. I'm sorry to pull you out like this, but I need to report a federal impersonator, my sister." She gestured toward me like she was showing off a shoplifter. I stayed seated. Captain Davis didn't even glance at her. His eyes landed on the badge on the table. He stopped mid-step, like he'd hit an invisible wall. The confusion on his face morphed into recognition. Then, alarm. He stepped forward, slowly, eyes locked on the card, his brows knit tight. Then, almost mechanically, he straightened. Shoulders back, spine rigid. And with a voice that sliced through the silence like a blade, he said, "General Vance." Lisa blinked. "What?" The captain ignored her. "My apologies, ma'am. I was not briefed that you were in the area." The air in the restaurant changed. The oxygen was gone. I felt every eye shift to me. Lisa stood frozen, her mouth slightly open, eyes darting from me to him, then back to me. "General?" she whispered. The word general hung in the air, like a grenade that had just exploded over our table. Lisa stepped back, literally stumbled. "What? What are you talking about? She's not a general. She works in an office. She files papers." Captain Davis didn't flinch. He didn't even look at her. His attention remained locked on me, eyes sharp, posture stiff. "Ma'am, is there an active issue? Do you require intervention?" I let the silence stretch. I wanted everyone to feel it. The shift. The truth. "No," I said calmly, voice steady. "The situation is under control." My mother's mouth was trembling. My father had gone pale. He blinked at me like he was seeing me for the first time in 20 years. "General," he finally croaked, "what the hell is going on?" I turned to Captain Davis. "However," I said, keeping my tone formal, "I strongly recommend Sergeant Miller be given a full and immediate refresher on Title 18 of the U.S. Code and the protocols around interagency deconfliction, especially when it involves senior Department of Defense personnel." His jaw tightened. That's when the shift happened in him. The bureaucratic cop became something else entirely. His eyes narrowed. He turned to Lisa like she had just handed him a loaded weapon and begged him to use it. "Sergeant Miller," he said coldly. "My car now." "Wait, what?" Lisa's voice cracked. Number, she's my sister. She's lying. She's been lying for years. Captain Davis took a step forward. I said, move. Lisa stood frozen, trembling. Captain, I didn't know. I thought, move. He reached out, gripped her arm, not violently but firm. Controlled. And just like that, the show was over. The woman who loved attention was now being dragged out of her own performance. My mom gasped. Please, don't do this. She didn't mean. He didn't even acknowledge her. Lisa's protests faded as the door swung shut behind them. Silence fell like a curtain. Thick, final. My mother sat with her hands clutched together, knuckles white. My father just stared. He looked at the spot Lisa had stood like she'd been a ghost all along. When he turned to me, I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Fear. Not of me, but of the reality he'd been too arrogant or too comfortable to face. I stood slowly, placing my napkin down. I have an early morning briefing, I said softly. Neither of them spoke. I left cash for the meal, tipped the waiter generously, and I walked out. Not in anger, not in triumph, but in absolute clarity. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't scream. I didn't even turn on the radio. I just drove. Windows down. Night air flooding in. It felt like I had stepped out of someone else's story finally. The mask I'd worn for 2 decades had melted off at that table. Not ripped, not yanked, just gone. And underneath it, not revenge, not triumph, just peace. That strange, unsettling quiet that comes when a storm ends and all the debris settles. I parked outside my building and sat in the car for a while, thinking, letting it all wash over me. The way Lisa's face fell. The way Captain Davis didn't even acknowledge her as an equal. The way my father couldn't form a sentence. And my mother clutching at civility like a blanket, watching the reality around her crumble. That dinner didn't change who I was. It changed who they thought I was. And the gap between those two things had always been my prison. But not anymore. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No dreams, no mental replays, no spiral of what I should have said. Oh, because I'd finally stopped trying to earn something that was never mine to win. 3 months later, I was standing in my real world again. The Pentagon. My badge buzzed me through security like a key through a locked door, and as I passed the checkpoint, one of the young officers at reception stood up. Morning, General. I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. My office was quiet, clean. Sunlight filtered through the ballistic windows. Everything had its place, including me. Inside, Major Barnes was waiting with a stack of after-action reports. Good morning, ma'am, he said briskly, placing the folders on my desk. Command was very pleased with your Aegis projection. The secretary asked me to pass along a personal commendation. I raised an eyebrow. Really? He smiled. His words were, her strategic forecast was so precise, it was unnerving. A real smile bloomed on my face. This was the world I belonged to, where silence meant respect, where performance didn't need to be proven through applause, where your value wasn't determined by who clapped the loudest at dinner but by what you did when no one was watching. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my personal phone buzzed. Not my secure line, not my Pentagon comms, just the little iPhone I kept in a drawer for emergencies. I almost didn't check it, but something made me flip it over. Lisa. A text. No, a wall of text. I stared at it for a full minute before I opened it. It was everything I expected, and nothing I needed. Claire, I didn't mean to embarrass you. You know I've always looked out for you, even if you didn't see it. You should have told us. How were we supposed to know? It went on. Paragraphs of excuses, dodges, justifications. Not once did she say, I was wrong. Not once did she say, I'm sorry I dismissed you. Number. She was sorry I felt that way. No. She was sorry about how it looked. She was sorry about her public humiliation, not my decades of erasure. I sat with that for a moment. Let it sink in. I remembered every holiday where I was treated like background noise. Every barbecue where my dad bragged about Lisa's parking tickets and left me off the invite list. Every time my mother patted my hand and said, let her have her moment, Claire. It wasn't just Lisa who failed me. It was all of them. And they weren't sorry for what they did. They were just shocked they'd finally been confronted with who I really was. And they couldn't handle it. They wanted me back in the box. Quiet, small, unseen. I looked at the blinking cursor in the message window. Then I typed 2 words. Message received. And hit send. Then, I blocked her. Just like that. Not out of spite, but out of preservation. There are bridges that can't be rebuilt not because they burned, but because they were never real in the first place. I turned my phone over, screen down, took a deep breath, and reached for the report on my desk. Because while she was unraveling her narrative, I was living mine. In full, 3 months later, no one in my family had reached out. Not my mother, not my father, and definitely not Lisa. You might think that hurt, but it didn't, Lee. It felt honest. For the first time in my life, everything was exactly where it belonged. There was no pretending, no performance, no dinner table charades where I had to smile through insult after insult just to keep the peace. The silence between us wasn't emptiness, it was freedom. I used to fantasize about the day they'd recognize me. That one magical dinner where my dad would raise a glass and toast my success. Where my mom would finally see me. Where Lisa would admit just once that I mattered too. But now I didn't need it. The validation I'd chased for years had already existed. In the eyes of my colleagues, in the trust of my superiors, in the weight of decisions that changed the course of global strategy, in the way Captain Davis stood at attention. No one had to believe I was someone. I was. A general doesn't wait for applause from people who never showed up. A general makes the hard calls, lives with the silence, owns her place in the world even if it's one her own family refuses to see. And sometimes, that's enough. No, it's more than enough. Last week, I got a briefing request from the Secretary of Defense himself. A classified program needed review. My team had been requested by name. I sat in my office, the sun painting long shadows across my desk, and opened the file with steady hands. No one clapped. No one cheered. But in that moment, I felt whole. Not because they changed. Because I did. They can keep their backyard barbecues and hollow compliments. I have a mission. A purpose. A life that finally feels like it's mine. And if they ever want to catch up, well, they'll have to salute first. Sometimes, the deepest betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who were supposed to know you best. For years, I tried to earn my family's approval, smiling through their jabs, shrinking myself to fit their version of successful. Excellent. But the truth? You don't owe anyone an explanation for your excellence. You don't need permission to take up space. And when someone finally sees you for who you truly are, let them. Even if it means walking away from everything familiar. That night in the restaurant didn't just reveal who I was. It revealed who they'd never been willing to see. And I'm done apologizing for their blind spots. What would you do if your own sister tried to arrest you out of jealousy? Would you forgive her? Would you walk away for good? Tell me in the comments, I want to hear your story. And if you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed, hit subscribe. Because here, your truth isn't just welcome, it's honored.